This week on the Inkwell, we're taking a look at a couple of notebooks from Blank Slate Paper over in New York. Now, I was going to do this about, a week or two ago, but I managed to only order one notebook, not thinking about it. So, in a rush, I had to go do this. And this is the recording of me panicking and going, wait a second, I'm now behind schedule because I forgot to order a notebook. So here I am just double checking the second notebook, making sure I've got the paper and that everything's where it needs to be as far as, making sure I've got one of each type, blurring everything out so you can't see any of the credit card or shipping information there. Sorry, guys. And then getting it ordered. And the second notebook arrived in 3 days from the time of that order. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is what your Blank Slate Paper notebook is going to look like in the shrink wrap. The inner cover that folds around the back is going to let you know what piece of how many pieces that is. And on the front here, we've got Blank Slate Paper Co. Stamped or printed onto this cardstock. Pretty thick cardstock. It's going to do a good job protecting the notebook for the most part, without being just too ungodly obtrusive like the Rhodia dot pads can be sometimes. On the inside, you've got your thank you for ordering from Blank Slate and the description of what you did with your notebook. I actually like that personal touch, and I wish more notebook manufacturers would actually kind of find a way to make that personal touch as well. But let's go ahead and move on. Taking a look at the notebook here, on the left-hand portion of the page, I have a 4mm dot reticle. And on the right-hand side, if you look closely, you can actually see that these are 8mm squares. Now, we're going to go ahead and speed up the writing sample so you guys don't have to watch in real time how long it took to actually go through and do everything. On the right, you may notice that I'll be dabbing the nibs on that paper towel. And it's really just because some of these pens had been sitting for about a week, and I wanted to make sure that they actually wrote during the writing sample. So, yeah, do what you gotta do. And on the left-hand side, you can actually see where about a week and a half before this, I had gotten a chance to get the paper ready for this particular video before realizing I needed to order the second notebook. It's going to be really interesting to see how the colors compare and contrast between the 28-pound paper on the left and the 32-pound paper on the right. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can also see where I've got a Rhodia dot pad, also with the exact same inks on there as well. So we're going to be getting a good comparison of the three. Man, if I could write that fast in real life, NaNoWriMo would be the easiest thing on the face of the earth. For those of you that don't know, NaNoWriMo is the month of February where you try to set a letter writing goal for the month and knock out as many letters or as, well, whatever you want to do with your goal. But let's take a look here at this 32-pound paper. So at the top, we've got the Nakaya Piccolo cigar with Robert Oster, Fire on Fire, Tasia Momo in the pilot. The Franklin Christoph does have color versus Schrodinger. The Rialo is running KWZ Hawaii Blue, and then just a Expo and a pencil to round it out. Now let's go ahead and do the color swabs. The cool thing about the 8mm squares that I did there, it makes doing this a lot easier to, well, just make sure that I'm getting a good size. On the reticle that I've got for the 28-pound, I keep getting lost on how many reticles I've actually gone over on it. So that's why I changed it up a little bit when I went with the 32-pound paper notebook. All right, now here comes the real comparison and the real performance test on these papers. So you do get a little bit of shading from each of the inks, but inks like Hawaii Blue and Fire on Fire, they're supposed to have a little bit more of a deep shade, a little bit of a sheen to them. You really don't see it, even on this 32-pound paper. Here we are on the 28, and as you can tell, the shading is virtually non-existent. Those inks are extremely flat, but the thing about the 28-pound paper, and even Blank Slate says it, it's a workhorse paper. It's not really going to have that much show to the ink. You buy the 32-pound paper to get that variation of the ink itself. So how are these two papers going to stack up against a known paper, in this case, the Rhodia dot pad? So as you can see, same thing that I did on the Blank Slate, but you're getting a lot more shading, and on Hawaii Blue right there, you can actually see the sheen. Same thing on Color vs. Schrodinger. I mean, look at that sheen. It's very apparent. Even Tasia Momo, which I didn't think... Wait a second. Is that a Wu-Tang Clan logo in the Fire on Fire? That is trippy. Yeah, that's the Wu-Tang Clan logo right there. Did not plan that. That is something else. And of course it happened with the Pen Addict Fire on Fire ink. Alright, so let's go ahead. Now that I got myself sidetracked there, let's look at the bleed through here. Rhodia dot pad, it's showing through pretty good, but it's not bleeding through onto the next page, which is what you would expect from Rhodia dot pad. But everything is showing through, like, massively. So much so my camera's not having a hard time focusing. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 28-pound paper here. Okay, so no bleed through onto the next page, which is exactly what the website says. I would say this, though, qualifies as a little bit more show-through than what the website's saying, and I'll highlight that a little bit later. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the 32-pound, a little bit thicker paper, and it shows. So, once again, no bleed through at all. And the show-through is so minimal at this point that you can see my camera's really having a hard time staying in focus. So let's go ahead and do the water test. Now, I wanted to do an equal test for all three, so yep, that's my dishwasher. And that's all three pieces of paper going in. So we're gonna check on that here in about an hour. Okay, an hour later, and yeah, what have I done? Let's go ahead and take a look at our control here on the Rhodia dot pad. So, typical performance. I wasn't expecting Schrodinger to turn yellow, but the paper held up, and some of the stuff is still legible. The inks that say they're not going to hold up don't hold up, and the inks that say they do. Also, you get a kind of a weird crease on the paper itself. So, there's our control. Let's take a look at how the Blank Slate paper did. And yeah, let's keep going in order. Let's go ahead and look at the 28-pound paper. Remind me never to use a dishwasher again. This is looking rough. And you saw right before I closed the dishwasher, they were sitting in there at the same angle. So they got hit equally, but even though this page is torn up like no other, the ink actually held to this paper a lot better than Rhodia. Like, even Pen Addict Fire on Fire, which is an ink that Brad Dowdy himself said is not going to hold up, is actually still legible enough I can recover that in a worst-case scenario. So let's take a look at by far the best survivor. And I don't know how this one survived the way it did, because I actually ended up finding this one at the bottom of the dishwasher up against one of the heater coils. So the center part managed to stay dry, but as far as legibility is concerned, it fared far worse than the 28-pound. So at least from this torture test, if I want a paper that's going to hold my ink, I'm going with the 28-pound paper. But if I want a paper that's going to, in and of itself, hold up, then I'm going to go with the 32, even though it too is on the edge of just tearing like the 28-pound did. So there you go. That was kind of an interesting torture test. So one last thing I wanted to go ahead and show, and Mike Madison over at Inkdependence and Figboot over on Figboot on Pens also went over this as well, and that is the Blank Slate Paper Co. website. Right off the bat, I've got to say, it's easy to use, it's functional, and it's laid out very well. We've got the pillars of Blank Slate, the fact that it's made in USA, handmade, eco-friendly, using pigmented inks so your designs stay on the paper. A really good about page, giving you a little bit of a behind the scenes of what goes on there, and as well as giving you the option to actually order samples of the different grids and rulings that you can use on your paper, as well as giving you the option to actually print those rulings onto your own paper so you can see what your madness is going to look like before you commit it to one of their notepads. So let's take a look at their pad designer itself. Now, you can start off with some really good templates here, and for most people, you may not get past the template phase, because see right here, the second you click on the template, you're given full creative control over every aspect of that template. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rainbow dot. So as you can see on the right hand side, it's actually a dot grid where the dots change color going down. And see all these different layers? That's where you can do the customization, which they did here for their stock one to give it that nice flair with the rainbow look. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at a few other things. So I'm just going to go ahead and wing a notepad here. As you can see, we do have our adjustments for vertical spacing, margins, horizontal spacing, and this is where you can really get creative with it. Changing your colors, changing your margins, changing from the dots to the reticles, whatever you want it to be. Also changing the thickness, and if you want to have hollow dots, which I'll do here in a second, there we go. You can even have the hollow dots, which honestly, for some purposes, actually work really well. So let's go ahead and try creating a little bit of a hybrid. So Urban Hafner, my partner over on Two Guys Zero Planners, has me on this 4mm kick, and I'm probably going to be that way for a while, so let's go ahead and make a 4mm monstrosity. On the right-hand side, I'm going to go with simple dot grid, and on the left, I'm going to go ahead and go with reticle grid. And the one thing I really like about this creator is you can eyeball things till they look right, or if you're more mathematically inclined and actually know what the width of the paper is in millimeters, you can just snap in whatever you want to and make it work. In my case, I wanted to go ahead and eyeball it, and as you can see there, I finally got the gap that I wanted between the reticle and the dot, made sure everything lined up. And then you get to go through and actually choose colors, or in my case, just punch in the HTML code for the Floor 3 media colors that I use for all my podcasts and stuff. So once you've made your design, then you can choose your paper. Now, like I was saying here, the 32-pound paper is described as being the one that's going to show off your ink, whereas the 28-pound dumb tar paper is really just going to be mainly for no bleed, no fuss, no muss. Which, after seeing how well it held up to the dishwasher, it lived up to what it's supposed to be. So once you've got everything in there, don't forget to name your notepad design and then hit save so it's in your profile. And normally you would hit add to cart instead of view cart, but if you make that mistake, you can just go into your profile, click on the pad that you meant to add, and then make sure everything looks right, that everything's where it needs to be. Go through, make sure your paper's still selected, and actually hit add to cart this time, and check out. So thank you guys for joining me for this rather interesting review of the Blank Slate Paper Co. notebooks. I'm glad that David Ray sent me a message on the Pen Addict Slack and told me, hey, I'm doing this paper company thing, and I'd really like for you to try it out. I did get the first notebook at a discount, but I did buy the second one at full price. I would have bought both at full price. They hold up really well. So click on the link in the description and see if Blank Slate is the Paper Co. for you. If you guys liked this video, click that like button. If you didn't like it, you know what to do. Either way, hit subscribe, support the channel at patreon.com/theinkwell, and follow the channel on Twitter and Instagram at theinkwell. That's going to wrap it up for this week. I'll see you next time.